Hi, ladies and gentlemen. I am Benjamin Temple. For those that have seen my videos, then you know who I am. Sitting in front of you is the MT-Ainch Electric Trains Southern Pacific GS4 Daylight steam locomotive Ainch scale. Now, yes, you're seeing it in pieces. The top half of the boiler with the cab, and then the frame of the lower half with all the electronics, and then the tender. The reason I'm doing a video is for this reasoning. I'm gonna post this, obviously, that when you're seeing this to YouTube, you'll know that, but I've had some trouble with this engine. Not being that great, or shouldn't say great, but that knowledgeable about high-tech electronics. To be honest, I was scared to touch this thing, thinking I'd somehow break it or not be able to fix it. So I sent it to a David Stoymeyer in Virginia, and he did fix it. Well, got it running better than it was. He replaced, so on this is what's called, underneath here, is a boiler board. It's a smaller one that plugs into this big one that I've got wrapped with electrical tape. And he replaced that. So in the smoke generator, he replaced the heating elements and the wick. He also replaced the the engine drawbar connection, which I didn't think needed to be replaced. I thought the one that was on there was great, but maybe not. And then in the process, when he replaced it, he also replaced the main board in this tender. He replaced those things, and it burnt up again. So I'd ask him about checking, but being he insisted, so I wouldn't allow it to flow. I wish I now. So then he checked second time, which now costs, it burnt this, and the main board in this tender burnt up. So he replaced those two things. I think once again he replaced this again too, just to be on the safe side. But what he found was there was a short, some bare wire for the lighting that had touched and shorted out those two boards. So then when he sent it back, he showed me video of it running, and he didn't run it with the smoke, but I'm assuming he tested it. I don't know. Anyhow, thinking it was all going to work, I took it to the River City Model Railroad Club and I run it. And after about 25 minutes, well, one of the things I found strange from the get-go, it really smoked more so than it ever had before. I mean, the smoke went really high up in the air, and the smoking whistle really went high, which was unusual. But after about 25 minutes, when you went to shut it down, go from whatever speed or throttle percentage down to 0, the controller might say 0, but the engine kept on moving. Also, other functions didn't work. So I took it back here, and one of the things that I found once I took it apart was this here was that wire was completely off. It had come loose. So I resoldered it, tested it, and it went back to running. But then I noticed shortly after running it, once again, it was getting extremely hot, and it would more or less shut down or fail to function. And a little brief history. I got this in 2020. I don't remember what month. But one of the things I noticed from the get-go was it didn't have your smoking whistle. At least part of that detail is missing. And it was that way from the get-go. I should have done more of a thorough check, but I didn't. And I only run it like 15 minutes. One of my future things I'm going to do is run an engine at least for 30 minutes to an hour, checking all the functions and making sure it works before saying that it's good. But even later down the road, I've never had a layout, so I've always had a temporary setup. And I did put on the Broadway Limit daylight cars and run it forward and backwards, but that's about all I could do because I didn't have much else track, and I don't have Snaptrack that has wide enough curves to operate those Broadway Limit articulated daylight cars. So I never saw a problem arise, but then after that, problems began to arise when I run it at the club. But even once running it there, when I joined last year in November, I'd run it 4 or 5 times before, well, it derailed a few times, which maybe caused that, I don't know. But it was about the 5th time when it come off the track and the front trucks was crossing across the track and sparking. That's when it would no longer do anything. And I figured you just let it, take it off, set it off for 5 minutes, and it'd be back to running. But it wasn't. So that's when I reached out on Facebook, and one guy gave me a number, a little blurry, but I mailed it to David Stoymar, and like I say, he fixed. But I think there's a misunderstanding, and he got the main boiler board didn't have the air horn sound function. It was now, for the grade crossing, F11 was now a steam whistle crossing sound. So that's why, but I'm not blaming him. I think the thing is I just give him too much information and confused the heck out of him. Plus, probably should have been more careful about, double checking the item number and some other things. But anyhow, I wanted to fix it myself, so I began to learn and study. And so I replaced this smaller board. I replaced the heating elements and the wick. Went from, he had a fiberglass string kind of thing, or rope style, and I went to a it's kind of like a square fiberglass paper square. And I also replaced the main board and the tender, which I specified 2 MT-inch parts that I wanted the air horn grade crossing sound, which they made sure was on there. So the reason I'm doing this video, like I said, when I fixed this, I carefully, one of the things I noticed when he did it, so these points were higher up, which I don't know, maybe it wasn't touching, but I thought maybe it might have been touching the boiler and shorting out. But so I made sure they were lower and did a more careful job, and but still didn't make no difference. Also, this is pretty dirty, but since now doing this, I've cleaned that up. So I hope I took rubbing alcohol and paper towel and wiped up all the rosin solder flux. But so one of the things that people on Facebook pointed out to me was something I didn't think about. This engine, there's what's called a stall rate of the decoder, and to get that, you simply run it on a DC controller, which I don't have here at my apartment. It's back at, the controller is at my parents' house in my shed that's on their property. But so I'm not able to test that here now. But the thing I noticed on this board, I don't know if you can see it in the video, so there's like this metal block that they've got on there. But when I took this off, and so you could really see the writing, and it wasn't this dirty because I didn't have flux all over it. But this is the ground piece of it but it didn't have the little, like, here on this Motor Plus, you can see where there's a definite connection to the board, but there wasn't one here. And I don't know if that's because that's the bad section of the board and maybe that's why it's overheating, or if the motor's got a problem. Now, we did find the positive, well, the motor positive, which is yellow, it was a loose wire, so as somebody said, that might have been the problem. But the problem is I can't get all the parts. Unfortunately, MTH doesn't make a kit for that motor, or you know, one that's already put together. I've got a shop working on the motor mount that's underneath, but we'll see if they get that made and made correctly. And then I'm going to see if I can order as many parts as I can, but I don't know. The thing I've been thinking about doing is ordering this main board, unsoldering everything, take pictures, and then carefully resolder everything back. And even though maybe the motor is okay, putting in a new motor with a new flywheel tack, and then the flywheel itself, putting all that in. But in the process of checking this out, I did accidentally break off them wires because they're brittle as heck. This here is, I ordered some wire that's gauge 30. It looks like it's about, I don't know, 28 or something. But anyhow, this stuff is more flexible than MTH's original stuff, which would be nice if they'd put a better grade of wiring. But you got to be real careful because the wires are very hard and brittle, so they break pretty easy. Where this stuff here, you can flex, no big deal. But I wanted to see my viewers, anybody that's got some expertise on MTH engines, and whether you'd have any sound advice on what could be the problem here. Like I say, I've replaced, well, I also ordered, so when he replaced this here engine drawbar, I'm not blaming him, but I think it's something that I didn't catch. So the newer style, they don't bring that metal all the way out and roll it back into the two little cylinders. So you got to be real careful when you pierce that through the tender. It catches and it sometimes rolls that copper plating up or breaks it. So what it is, I took super glue and I super glued that to the plastic. Now it don't roll it up, and it's easier to get through now. But I wonder if that isn't the reason he replaced it. When he took it apart, he had that problem. But so well, that's one of the reasons. When I took it apart and went to put it back together after doing some of the repair, I didn't pay attention and it wouldn't go forward or backwards and everything else, and then realized that part of the copper connection was broken on that, and so I replaced it. I super glued it, and once I got it to slide through there, it worked fine as far as going forward and backwards until it overheats. And like I say, I'm still trying to figure it out. Like if this was a Rodway limit, you would just simply throw the switch underneath the cab or somewhere on the engine for the smoke unit. I would also order a new smoke unit, but unfortunately, I've even posted pictures of this top board with that serial number. But unfortunately, MTH is out of the smoke unit. But the fans work. I mean, it's not like they don't work. The smoke unit works, but it seems to be overheating. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But if I run it, it works fine. It's just this board gets extremely hot. And maybe due to the smoke unit and all that. But I don't know, if there's some kind of ground that's not properly seated or grounding that's causing that. Or again, like I say, maybe it's the ground here, and this little metal square that they put on there isn't making good contact with this section that's labeled ground here. So I was really hoping that one of my viewers might have knowledge or be an MTH Electric Trains expert on this sort of thing, because I am certainly not. I mean, I fix engines, I know how to solder, obviously. I'm not to say that I'm super great. I would at some point in my life like to maybe take a few soldering classes and get better at it, but used to be able to solder where you couldn't tell, at least if I soldered wires to HO track, but after not doing it for a while, I need some more practice again and get better at it. But I can do most of the common stuff. And the thing that, you know, I was hoping is that somebody's had this problem in the past and would know. I mean, had I have really been doing what I should have test run it, it would have had this problem arise, and knowing that I had a missing detail, which doesn't necessarily mean anything, but knowing there's one problem, sometimes there's more problems, and if I had done that problem, then I could have sent it in on warranty instead of spending all this money. But one of the reasons I'm not really wanting to replace that motor is because if I buy, like, I know the MTH part, people are like, forgive me, I have a cold. The thing that they're saying is, like, you know, reuse that flywheel, special flywheel. That's the reason it's important, because on the back side of it, it's striped, so the tach reader sensor will see those stripes and know to make the correct chuffing sound. But I also think it has something to do with the smoke unit synchronization, probably working too on that. But anyhow, I will have to take that off, and they have given me that you have to set a distance between the tach reader and the flywheel, which you can see they've got. So what you can see, you barely see it, but there's a metal piece there just in front of my fingernail there, which is your motor mount. It goes on down and it turns sideways, or, you know, horizontal, with the bottom of the engine motor there and two screws that connect that motor there. But then you have this electronic board, which is called your flywheel tach reader, and that works with that flywheel. And well, you had to have a I forget what they call that device, but to pull that apart, supposedly, and maybe it's just a simple unscrewing those screws and it'll all come apart. But somebody on Facebook, which I believe, and I checked, sure enough, there is a tool that you can buy from Walters to, I guess, pull that flywheel and all that stuff off from the engine and then properly set it on. But I wanted to buy a new motor. I was hoping that I could get it all pre-set up and buy that price, but again, they don't do that. You have to buy the parts individually, and I can't get the motor mount, so we're working on getting that. And then we'll try to set it. But it looks like even there's like a piece of thin construction paper or something between the motor mount and the you know, electronic board there, the flywheel tach reader. So we'll definitely have to look in and find out what goes there too. But so those are the things I'm looking at, and hoping that somebody out there's got an answer, somebody that knows more than I know. Anyhow, any thoughts, advice, please leave a comment. Also, if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel. If you have any pointers, you know, I'd be grateful. And I am Benjamin Temple. Thank you for watching my video, and I hope you have a good night. Bye-bye.